There we go.
All right. You look great.
Oh,
Not too right. I know. We were just chatting about our houses and all the
yes.
fun things that come with that. So
Yes.
yeah.
Adulthood. Woo!
I know. And I'm gonna try to hopefully my AirPods won't pop out of my ears. Sometimes they do that. Is it just my ears? Does it happen to
No,
anybody
I have
else?
to put mine in backwards sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I turn them upside down.
Oh, interesting. I've never
Yeah.
tried that, but it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt?
No, when I run, I have to do that. They will not stay in my ears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember like running on the treadmill and I have to keep popping them in because I would get so sweaty. That is so like when I exercise, my face gets like beet red and I
Yeah.
just like I my husband's like, oh, because you're a hothead, you know? It's like, oh,
Funny
yeah.
guy.
I know. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
sometimes I can be. Okay, well, let's get started here. And I'm sure more people will start to filter in here.
Yes.
Looks like we have a couple people. All right, so happy Wednesday, everybody. It is hump day. The week
Yes.
is halfway over, and you found some time to make it to join the next 30 minutes with us. So we are so thankful. So welcome to the Dog Gurus live discussion. Thanks for watching and listening to us, whether it's on our social media or in our podcast. I'm Shantae Marquez, joined with Amber Burkhalter, and we are
Hello.
both Profit Network coaches at the Dog Gurus. We love interaction, so if you want to put in some comments or questions throughout the discussion, we totally welcome that, and you can do that through the chat. So the Dog Gurus provides expert business guidance and has helped hundreds of pet care facilities thrive because we use comprehensive resources with proven strategies built by pet care business owners. That's right, all of our coaches have walked in your shoes and we've owned and operated our own facilities or still currently running them. So the Dog Gurus provides coaching at every level of your business, whether you're a startup or whether you're mature and looking to scale for your third or fourth location. We have programs to help you. And we also are about to launch our new platform. It's coming in a couple weeks, where it is fueled with an AI companion that is curated from the Dog Guru's knowledge vault and value system. So be on the lookout to hear more about that as we introduce it to the public. All right. So I'm excited to dive into how positive reinforcement can transform your workplace and culture. And we're not talking about treats or belly rubs. We're talking about positive reinforcement being for your people, not just for the dogs. And we'll cover the foundation of positive reinforcement, practical applications, implementation strategies, how you tailor it to different personalities, which I know Amber is really passionate about, and creating a recognition culture. So first, to start off, let's talk about the foundation. So, the science behind it is that positive reinforcement works because it activates the brain's reward system, the same neurological pathway, whether you're training a puppy or motivating your team. And, Amber being our expert trainer, I'm sure you have a lot to say on this.
Yeah, it's so funny because I often say that about I have a very large family and a lot of very young nieces and nephews. And sometimes people will be like, you act like you're training dogs. I'm like, I don't act like I'm training dogs. Motivation works the same way. Whatever you reward repeats. It doesn't matter if it's a goldfish or a gorilla. Whatever you reward repeats. So yes, I have strong opinions around positive reinforcement and motivation for sure.
Yeah. And, the Dog Gurus, we are a company that wholly believes in positive reinforcement for all around, not only for you working with your staff, but also working with the dogs. I mean, all of our products are based on positive reinforcement handling and things like that. So it's very close to our heart. But I know that a common misconception that people might have is that, if you give too much positive recognition, you're soft or you're giving participation trophies. But that's not what it's about. It's really about strategic recognition that drives results. And that's what we want to see for you. And teams with regular recognition are 31% more productive and have 37% better sales performance. So just think about that. It makes a big impact. I know for me, it was like a muscle I really had to develop. And it was really hard when I first opened up the business. I felt like it was a whole other job to constantly be giving positive reinforcement. And I just wasn't used to it, because when I grew up and when I was working as a young person, if I wasn't getting yelled at, I knew I was doing a good job. Like I was okay. And, that's just not how people work anymore. That's not the same mentality. But it needs to start with you, and you need to show an example of how you want your managers or other people to work in the workplace. How about you? Was it always something easy? Did it come easy for you?
I grew up the same way as you did, right? Like, I'm paying you a paycheck. Why should I reinforce your behavior? Like, that was sort of my,
Yeah.
like, why would I pay you? I'm already paying you, right? I pay you. So yeah, I struggle with that. It's always interesting and funny, actually. If you talk to anyone who's been in the training game for a while, particularly positive reinforcement trainers, we have this joke of, we reinforce our dogs, but we don't reinforce each other. So it's a habit that you really have to get into. And I know some owners really struggle with this. Like, literally, I pay them. That's their reinforcement,
Yeah.
but often that is not enough. And it is not, it doesn't meet the metrics of reinforcement, right? Because we only get paid every 2 weeks, let's say. So you reinforce every 2 weeks, but it's not specific. It's not done quickly. It's not genuine. Do you see what I'm saying? Right. So you miss all the little metric bits. So, but yeah, I think a lot of people really struggle with this. I think we struggle with this as humans. I mean, I don't know the last time I said thank you to my husband for unloading the dishwasher. I think as humans, we struggle with this. And a lot of it, like you said, you pointed out your childhood. I think a lot of it is how we were raised.
Oh, okay. Not to say anything bad about my family. Like, positive reinforcement wasn't a big thing in our, in our household. I just didn't grow up with that. Like, yeah. When I was little, I was always like, oh, look at that person got a little note in their mail, their lunch bag. I was like, I want that. And that just wasn't something. My parents were very busy. They worked very hard and they worked very long hours. So there just wasn't a lot of time for that, I think.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't used to it. It was a skill I really had to develop. And I struggled with it a lot in the beginning. And then once I kind of understood and saw the positive effects it had on my staff, then it made all the world's difference, and it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So there are 3 pillars of effective workplace reinforcement. And these 3 pillars are: 1, timing. So just like when you work with the dogs, it has to be immediate instead of, delaying it. So if you see something that they're doing and you want to reinforce that good behavior, tell them right then and there. That it's, and the second thing is specificity. Hold on, let me say it again. You're gonna have to help me out with this one. Yeah, there we go.
Be specific.
Specificity. Okay. Be specific. Sorry, I always just.
That's a tongue twister. It is a tongue twister.
Yeah, so be specific. You want to be really specific. When you're like, oh, you did a great job today. That's nice. That's a good start. But it's much more meaningful when you're really specific about exactly what they did that was great today. And it just goes a long ways with the staff. And then the third one is being authentic. Look, people can smell fake praise from a mile away. And, they can maybe misconstrue it for being sarcastic or being made fun of, or that could just be taken the wrong way if you're not authentic about it. So those are the 3 pillars that, I see. And then let's move on to practical applications. So, there is different levels of how you can give this positive reinforcement. So level 1 would be like micro moments. And that would be an example would be like, hey, Sarah, I noticed how gently you handled that anxious new dog this morning. That's exactly the patience we want to show every pet. So that's, calling it out when you see it. Other things you could do is you could do a quick text to the person because we'll talk about this, but if they don't like to be recognized or get
Yeah.
embarrassed
Yeah.
by being called out, you can do a quick text,
Yeah.
or you can, email, give them an email or something like that. How did you guys do different forms of recognition?
We did. When we hired an employee, one of the questions we asked them was what is your love language, right? Like, what is the best way to reinforce you? Do you like public recognition? Do you not? Do you want, written notes? We asked a lot of different questions. We also asked things that they like, right? So when we were reinforcing them, we could give them things we knew they wanted. They were tailored to the person. An example would be, we had a daily huddle in the middle of the day. AM staff, PM staff came together. We had a staff meeting, 15 minutes, high level, what's going on today, et cetera. And some people really like to be called out in that meeting. And so whoever was leading the meeting, if it was me or one of my managers, would have a list of, hey, Shantae, thank you so much for doing those baths for me today. Hey, Aurelia, I really appreciate you pitching in. But there would be someone on this list and it would say no, because they were a person that if you said, hey, fill in the blank, they would get embarrassed, and it was almost like a negative experience for them. So we were careful about how people wanted to be reinforced. I really like to do handwritten notes. Those were a big one for us too. Mm-hmm. And the other thing we did was we gave our managers gift cards. So like Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or whatever, and they had a certain number of them every month, and they were required to get rid of them by the end of the month. And they could not get rid of all of them the last week of the month. It had to be throughout the month, so that they were empowered to do on the spots, right? Because they see things I didn't see. I didn't see somebody, take somebody's dog in the back that was anxious and do it gently. And they also know their staff. They work with them every day. They're going to know, does this person like to be called out publicly, or would they prefer me quietly to come to them after the meeting and say, hey, I really appreciate what you did for me earlier. Go get yourself some coffee. So yeah.
We did $5 Starbucks cards. So, give them a little note with that. I also bought these affirmation cards that would say things like, you're awesome, or, just give them a little boost. And sometimes if they were like a front desk worker or something, sometimes I'd leave it at their desk. They'd like go to the bathroom or go run a dog back, and I'd leave it there, and they'd come back and they'd be like, oh my God, or if it's a back of house staff, you just slyly hand it off to them, and just kind of fun. And they'd be like, what is this?
The coolest thing I've ever heard of is, I had a colleague of mine who runs a totally different business, not in the pet field at all. He bought, you remember those gumball machines when we were kids, you put quarters in the gumball. Yeah. So he bought a gumball machine, but he bought these other balls. I think they were ping pong balls. I'm not 100% sure. And they were available to anyone. And so if you saw someone doing something, you could write their name on one of these balls and you would put it in the gumball machine. And at the end of the month, they would do a drawing, and they would turn the thing, they would shake it up and turn it, and whoever's name popped out got like this big prize. I mean, fill in the blank of whatever it was, like an extra PTO day, or, they got to call in sick one day. And so it was a way of like constantly reinforcing each other. I thought it was a really cool idea. He kind of leveled up. Like, he would at Christmas buy all these like computers or TVs, like crazy gifts. He had a different kind of business. And he would give those away out throughout the year. And I was like, good Lord, man, like that is a level up. But I thought that was a very cool way of like recognition, let's do the gumball machine. Yeah. It was fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, we kind of mentioned the visible recognition, but there's also structured programs. So we actually had a box that was called the Kudos box, and we would have monthly sales meetings. And what we would do is the manager would pull all of the Kudos box was something where the other staff would shout out to each other. We really wanted to encourage not only the managers doing it, like the managers were also required to do X amount per week. That's how I structured it. But then also we wanted to encourage that the team members shout each other out and give each other positive praise as well. So we had this Kudo box, and we would do is basically, get all of the little cards in our staff meeting, and we would read through them. And if you got one, you also got like a candy bar or something like that. And it was just really nice. Everybody had so much fun. What I did see is that right before the staff meeting, they would load them up.
Of course.
I'm like, you guys really want these candy bars. But whatever, it was still fun and it created like a joyous moment and it was a
Yeah.
good team building experience for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, creating some type of opportunities for your staff, not because it's not just your job to give the recognition,
No. Yeah.
it's everybody in the company. You
Everybody's
want to
job. It becomes
create
part of your culture, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are people who are watching live. Do you guys do any type of recognition? We'd love to see it in the chat. But let's talk about personalities. How to tailor it to personalities. Do you want to talk on that, Amber?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit earlier. Everybody's a little bit different. So what is reinforcing to me may not be reinforcing to Shantae. We actually had this running joke at conference this year where somehow it came out that I like public recognition. And so it just everybody just kept shouting my name out, right? Yeah, like we're recognizing you, Amber. Like it just kept happening. It became this running joke. But there are other people that is really not what they want. So teaching your management team as well as yourself, how do I figure out what is reinforcing to each employee? And frankly, asking them is the best way to do it. Because like I said, just because it makes me happy to be publicly recognized, for some people, like that's actually almost like a slap on the hand because they don't want to be looked at, right? They don't want everyone staring at them. So figuring out the differences in your staff, figuring out the cadence in your staff, like how often does someone like to be rewarded or need to be rewarded? There are a lot of little niches about this. It needs to be part of your hiring package. So like I said, for us with our hiring package, we would do like list and tell us how you like to be rewarded, and then we would have like a box, like tell us what you like, so that we didn't do something that it didn't reinforce their behavior. Amy's on. Hi, Amy. Amy's one of our Profit Network members, I believe. That's the same Amy.
Yes, it is. It is.
So Amy says, haven't in this field, but we did a lot of the things you talked about when I worked at the vet clinic. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty plug and play, for most locations or most. I don't really think it matters the type of business that you have, but yeah, just knowing your team for sure.
Well, I'll have a challenge for Amy to implement at least, one of these days. At the end of this, I'll give a challenge for everybody, but Amy, I'm calling you out, making sure that you're going to do one of these things. So, so some things that common pitfalls to avoid is, which I didn't realize this until a few years ago, until I started, really studying recognition and getting coaching from the dog gurus. I realized this wasn't a good thing. And that's kind of what I was doing, in the beginning of giving recognition. But the sandwich method, I was taught that was a good method, but it's actually
for recognition.
Yeah.
It's great for feedback, but it's not great for recognition. This is true.
Yes. So that's the difference there. You can give it for feedback, but the sandwich method is, pairing praise with criticism. So, you don't want to do that with recognition. Other things, one size fits all doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Another thing is forgetting the follow through. Forgetting to follow through.
Fortune is in the follow through for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then timing disasters, of course. So, you want to avoid all that, but implementation strategies. So we really encourage you, if you don't have this muscle built yet into your business of the recognition, we want you to just start small and then scale it. Okay. So a good suggestion would be like week 1, try to set a goal of yours to catch 3 people doing something good that week, or, not only for yourself, but maybe for your managers. Mm-hmm. Set a really small attainable goal. You want to give 3 praises this week to somebody. Somebody's doing something good every single day, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it.
Well, you might need to get micro, right? Like, okay, you wrote the dog's name on the daycare board in the right spot. Okay, we're going to praise that today. A lot of times if you're really struggling with your team, because we have clients, and I know you have heard this, where they're like, I have nothing to praise. This isn't true. Like there is something, right? Get micro, find something. I do like the idea of starting with 3 for the week. And I think a really good way to do that is, like you said, like give 3 $5 gift cards to your managers and say, hey, I need you to get rid of these by Friday. Right. Like, so they have a marker to remind them to, but start small for sure.
Yeah, I think that's real attainable and doable. And yeah, you gotta also, it'll help like switch the mindset for looking for positive things rather than just noticing the negative too.
Yes.
I mean, that's a skill to develop as well, especially when you're, you know, so stressed out and you have a million things going. So week 2, what you could do is add a team-wide recognition moment in morning briefings or midday huddles per se. So, you know, start with each shift with one specific shout out from the previous day. So that could be something you could do in week 2. And then week 3, you could implement a peer recognition tool or system. So, you know, that kudos box that we talked about, or I don't know, you guys did it a different way. You said, did you have a recognition board?
We had a recognition board, but we also did, we talked about the gift cards. We played something called we had the rubber band game. And so every manager was given rubber bands. They were all different colors. They didn't know this when I first started doing this, but the colors actually matched their name. So I could tell visually who was actually doing it. So you got 10 rubber bands, and by the end of the week, you wanted to get rid of them. And so I could see staff walking around and I could see the color of the rubber band. So I knew that my manager and what manager had done it that day. Right.
Oh,
so, and I could see that they had been, the staff member had been reinforced that day. And so we did it one time, and I was like, who has rubber bands left? And, you know, somebody always had a couple left. And I was like, okay, so I can tell this is why we did it this way. And so the game actually became reinforce somebody else so I can reinforce you. Right. So it created this pyramid culture of everyone getting reinforced the same way. And I like the visual side of that. I totally stole that from somebody else. I don't know who it was. It was a long time ago, or I would give them credit. But
I love that idea. That's a great idea. Yeah,
I think really actually I got it from when I was working at Outback Steakhouse in college. We used to do a lot of these things where the manager would have like a colored tab that they would put on your shirt and stuff, so that they were marking, I'm the person who reinforced them. But it became a game. And then, like you said, you shift your mindset. I think as an owner, we get so used to making sure we have a very wide vision so that we don't miss anything. So we're catching anything that might build up to something that's negative. So we're constantly looking for things and we get stuck there, right? So shifting that mindset, I think it's very natural to get stuck there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I struggle with it all the time, even today, you know, to stop like, you know, focusing on the negative things and really shift that mindset. It's just something that you constantly need to continue work at, or at least I do for me.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Except those super positive people that wake up at like 6 a.m. bouncing through life. And they're just, I don't even understand those people. So we're not the same.
Like, give me some of what they have. I don't know. Exactly. All right. So let's see, creating a recognition culture. So, you know, that really starts with modeling the leadership staff and yourself modeling that. You can't mandate what you don't demonstrate. So I think that's number one, creating the peer-to-peer systems that we spoke about, and then also developing the skill of having a regular rhythm with it, getting them to, you know, build it into reoccurring meetings and processes. You know, that rubber band idea was a great idea. And measure what matters. So track engagement, retention, and performance improvement when you start this. And I think you'll start to see a huge impact on your business and the culture that you have.
You said something earlier that I just want to put a spotlight on, which is strategic reinforcement. So looking at your business strategy, like retention, finding opportunity to reinforce your staff when they are somehow creating retention with clients, right? When you see them creating good experiences for your client and for the dog, that's going to improve your retention. So you can reinforce that staff member. But you said it perfectly when you said you want to have strategic reinforcement, right? Things that are going to impact the bottom line. And you also want to have a good quality of life for your team. I don't mean to suggest that it's always just about the bottom line, but yeah, being strategic about it it's really going to help your business. You're not going to somehow hurt your business by telling your employees they're doing a great job. It's not going to happen.
No, it's only going to make things better. Don't
Yeah.
believe me. All right. So here's the challenge that I want to pose to the listeners out there. So in the next 48 hours, I want you to identify 3 specific behaviors that you want to see more of from your team. So tomorrow, give at least 2 pieces of specific, genuine, positive feedback. And then this week, start 1 new recognition practice, however small it might be. So that's the challenge. At least take one thing from today and implement it, and start to have it flourish and get your team on this path as well.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for listening. I will also invite you to join our Facebook group. That's Grow Your Pet Care Business group. I will put the link in the chat right now. Let me copy and paste it. And I think that about wraps it up for today. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.